Hey, welcome to my basement, everybody. I've got a fantastic group of guests today. It's always a treat to talk with people that work at game studios, but very rarely do we get the chance to have a conversation with people that have just launched a game studio. The announcement broke this week on Timber Games, which is a brand new company in Vancouver, British Columbia, which is where I'm from. And normally we would all be together hanging out in person, but we're not quite there yet. I've got Joe Nichols, who is the president of Timber Games. I've got Zoe Curnow, who's the production director, and Jeff Coates, who is the creative director at Timber Games. First of all, Joe, why don't we start with what Timber Games means? Because it's not spelled maybe the way that everybody understands timber, the word timber to be.
Aren't we clever? We're
Yeah,
so clever,
I
right?
like it. I like the name. It definitely makes me feel like I'm in the Pacific Northwest when I say Timber Games.
See, it totally worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got together and we're trying to think of a name that really kind of felt West Coast, but wasn't so obvious West Coast. And then we were thinking about some of the visions, values, and things that we have for the studio. And the word timber came up, and there's different ways to pronounce it. You know, a lot of people call it timber, a lot of people call it timbre. It's kind of a play on words. So the tone, it's an audible term, like the tone, voices coming together. And we thought, wow, it looks like it means that, but then it sounds like timber. And so we thought there's a great mashup of a word that really represented who we are trying to be as a studio. And it sounds West Coast. And that's how it all came together. And so far, people really dig it.
Awesome. You guys all go back. Have you ever worked together before? I know the community is pretty tight in Vancouver, and everybody
I've
works
never
at
seen
EA.
these two before in my life.
Yeah.
At least you wish you hadn't.
Meet Zoe. Meet Joe. Everybody's in little boxes now.
No, they seem tall.
No, had you ever collaborated before? Or is this the first time that you're working together?
It's
Joe?
gonna go.
We've all worked together, but the three of us have not worked together at the same time. So
Yeah.
I worked with Zoe at EA.
Yeah.
And I worked with Jeff at EA, but I kind of avoided him.
Wise.
I've never
Wise
actually
move.
crossed paths, but when I was at Capcom, Jeff was our studio art director. So I worked with Jeff at Capcom, worked with Zoe at EA. And then I think Jeff and Zoe worked together.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zoe and I. Oh, you go ahead, Zoe.
No, you go.
Okay.
Canadian spin golf.
Yeah, Zoe and I worked together on SSX back at EA for one of the SSXs, and then later on, yeah, I worked with Joe at Capcom. And when I talked to Joe about Timber, he mentioned Zoe, and I was like, oh man, I would love to work with Zoe again. So the idea of working with these two was really, really appealing to me.
Yeah,
Joe-
yeah. That was about 10 years ago that we worked together.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I mean, EA has been such an incredible, launching pad for so many careers in the video game
Yeah.
industry. Everybody's
Yeah.
passed through that studio. And I think people often forget how many incredible games EA has brought out into the world. Joe, you just left EA, though. You just had a senior role. You were working on The Sims.
Yeah.
What was it about launching something new? Because this is an incredibly, competitive marketplace. It's it can be incredibly rewarding, but also incredibly scary to go out on your own and try to build a new studio. But what was it about Timber and launching this that made you want to leave EA and go for it?
Well, it was, first off, EA is an amazing place, and I've spent the lion's share of my career there. It's been a family. And when I was down in the US running Maxis, we'd made the decision that my wife and I were going to come back, and we really wanted to come back to Vancouver.
Yep.
And really running a studio like Maxis and The Sims is hard to do when 300 people are in California and one dude is in Canada.
Right.
So really thought about it and thought, man, I really want to do something again. I really want to build a studio that can make some different experiences, and all the amazing things that I learned at Maxis and in DDA about diversity, inclusion, and all the stuff that was really important to me. I really wanted to try my hand at doing that with people that I could really lean on and trust, people that were really good at what I'm not good at. And so, I had kept in touch with Jeff the entire time. And I said, I think I might come back, and I'm thinking about starting a studio. You up for this? And he goes, yeah, dude, this will be totally cool. Let's just do this. So he and I have been talking about doing this for a while. And then, I thought of Zoe right away when I got back here. And but the real draw is to build something of substance, to build something with values and vision and games and people and products that we all believe in.
Yep.
I remember talking to the Vancouver development community when I accepted the job to go to California, and they were saying, "Well, what do you mean you're going?" I said, "Well, I'm going to go do this." And they're like, "Yeah, but you were supposed to stay here and be like help us to build the Vancouver video game scene."
Right.
And I really thought about that, and I've never forgotten that. It was, it was two people that I worked with. It was David Seymour at Microsoft and Justin Dowdswell, who was running Relic, and talked to those guys, and they said, you can't go, you got to stay. So I left, and then, but coming back, it was a big plus was to build a studio in the city, and get some great people and give some great people some great work in this city.
Yeah.
And do what little I can do to try and push it back on the map. Not as off the map, but just give another reason to think about Vancouver.
Zoe, you left the Gears franchise.
I did.
And that must not have been an immediate decision for you, because that, not only is that stability, I imagine that's pretty creatively rewarding as well. But what was it about, this idea and working with these guys that made it a no-brainer for you?
Yeah, I think there's points in your career where you kind of go, what's next? And we're all of similar vintage. But I had a moment of, I turned 50 this year, and it was a little bit of like, what do I want? And what do I need?
Right.
I know you're shocked, Joe. You thought I was 35. But, and it was a little bit of like that self-reflection this year. And the pandemic, has done that to so many people, I think, too. Right.
Yeah,
and man, I really did love the Coalition. I still do. I have so much respect for them and such incredible games that we've made there, but it was time to do something different. I'd been there for 7.5 years, and that's the longest I've ever been at a game studio. It is eons in game development career years.
Mm-hmm.
People don't generally stay that long.
Right.
So it was like, it was time to do something new. And then it was just such an exciting opportunity. Joe and I laugh a bit, but the day he messaged me, I was sitting with my husband, Rory, and, Joe just said, "Hey, what's going on? Let's chat." And I said to Rory, I'm like, "Joe just reached out to me." And Rory just said, "Go work with Joe." So, it was that kind of a feeling. And then same thing when Joe said, "Hey, what do you think?" I've been talking to Jeff about being the creative director. And I was like, absolutely. Because we just had such an interesting and really creative time working on that project that we did together. And it was a really hard project, that last SSX, but we made it work. And so I just kind of know that where things go, we'll be able to succeed at it, the three of us. And that was just so exciting, to be able to do it from the ground up, but with the support of a larger organization.
Yeah, we're going to get into that in a sec. But Jeff, I want to talk to you too, because you were at Relic. Was that your last role just before Timber?
Yeah, I was at Relic just before Timber, and Relic is such a great. I love Relic. Relic is just one of those like mid-size foundational in Vancouver studios. It's been around for over 20 years now.
Huge week for the company this week as well, right? With the announcement of company here.
Yeah. I want to apologize to anybody from Relic for announcing our studio on the same day as their game, but not planned. But I love that studio. I love the way it's run, and the games that they make. But when I was talking to Joe, the idea was to do something that's ours, right? That's really us and sort of the values that we have. And just a huge opportunity to make something new. Relic is a really established. They know who they are, they know what they make, and they've been doing it for a long time, and that's awesome. But this was a great chance for us to step out and do something that we really believe in, and as Joe says, to make something new in the Vancouver game community.
How much does EA? I mean, everybody, you've all had a lot of experience outside of EA, but I look at EA with its breadth of titles. How does that prepare you to have the flexibility and the ability to roll with it when you're launching your own company or your own studio like this? I look at it as almost like a scholastic educational kind of part of the industry, right?
Yeah.
I started my career there in '95. I was there for a decade before going on to another company, and I went back again to when I worked with Zoe. And you're exactly right. It really was like that's where a lot of people in Vancouver learned about making video games.
Yeah.
It's where a lot of studios got their, the studio leaders at some of the smaller studios in town came from. I mean, that's sort of like where it all started.
You mentioned Relic, and you're right. Relic is an incredible, like world-class strategy house, and that's what it's known as. But you look at EA, and they've got a wrestling game here. They might throw Def Jam in there. They might do boxing for a bit, or tennis, or there's very few or snowboarding. There's very few companies that have that sort of diverse lineup that everybody working there can kind of draw from. So let's talk about Pipeworks and this company that owns other studios around the world. Joe, was this something that they reached out to you, or you reached out to them? Like, how did this get facilitated? Because this is is it the first Canadian studio for Pipeworks?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I went to GDC a couple of years back, and when we went places, and I met Lindsay, and Lindsay Gupton is the CEO of Pipeworks, and we had a mutual connection, and we ended up having breakfast at one of the events, and we just really hit it off. There was some chemistry there, and really enjoyed the conversation, and we kept in touch. And Lindsay and I had been discussing at some point, you ever think about moving back to Vancouver at all? And I'm like, yeah, I do. I miss being in Canada. So I said, I'd really like to have a conversation about that. So we had a conversation about that. And then last year he called me because we'd still been talking. He said, I got some good news and bad news. I went, oh, okay. And I said, well, just tell me the bad news first. He goes, well, the bad news is I'm being acquired. I'm like, oh. And he goes, but the good news is let's move forward and still do this. And that's where Sumo came into the picture. Sumo had acquired Pipeworks. And I had dabbled with Sumo a long time ago in the past when I was at EA working at sports.
Right.
And Sumo is like such a successful company. I think we're studio number 14 that has joined the family. And they had wanted to be in Canada as well. And they'd wanted to be in Vancouver because they had some roots in there because of all the work that they'd done with places there. And so it was kind of this weird perfect storm. Everything kind of just fell into place. Said, hey, we'd like to do something. And then Sumo was part of the picture. And Lindsay and I were both kind of aligned on the vision for the studio and what we wanted to do. And like, man, what a great win. People you like to work with Pipeworks down in Oregon that have been around for a really long time, have done everything.
Yeah.
And then Sumo, who brings that kind of international thing to play.
Who have also done everything.
Yes, have also done everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're seeing a lot of consolidation around the business right now. We're also seeing a lot of turmoil, a lot of people leaving studios and deciding to do, work from home, and distributed development has never been bigger. Joe, you and I have, shared the stage talking about how important external development is.
Right.
Is being a part of this larger conglomerate, this international giant business now, are you guys going to be sharing development across studios, or is Timber going to have its own identity and shape its own future that way? How's it all going to work for you guys?
I'll quickly start and let Jeff and Zoe have some airspace. But the short answer is yes. Timber is going to be independent, absolutely independent, and talk about the products and stuff that we are going to make. But there are also really amazing opportunities to work with both our partners in Oregon and over at the Sumo Group.
Yeah.
The Sumo Group's working on some really, really cool stuff. And there are opportunities for us to partner with studio or studios over there where it makes sense. Case in point, we're already getting rolling on something that we're going to be partnering with our folks down in Oregon. But we are still going to be Timber Games, and that's the amazing thing that we're really grateful about. Is we're not just extra headcount in Canada enjoying a 17% tax credit from the IDMTC and taking advantage of the exchange rate. We're an actual real studio, and while we have the benefit of having the know-how, the knowledge, and the support from Sumo and Pipeworks, we still are going to work on our own stuff. And so it's a blend of both.
How are you going to overcome this work from home kind of new reality? Because a lot of people don't want to go back into offices, and they want to be able to be a little bit more independent and live in different parts of the world, not necessarily congregate in big cities and stuff. And Vancouver is not a cheap city. It's, this is a little bit more business oriented, but maybe Zoe, you can speak to that, because I know recruiting is a huge part of where you're at right now.
Yes, we are.
How are you going to overcome people's hesitations to, it's beautiful here, but boy, it ain't cheap.
I think the short answer is we're going to embrace it. So where it makes sense, we will explore remote roles for people. It has to be the right role and the right, how that implies and how that works with how we work.
Mm-hmm.
But we do want to embrace it. And so something, we talked about a lot is diversity isn't just, in the typical ways we talk about underrepresented groups. It also is in people's locations and where they are.
Right.
And so we've been talking about that a lot. Like, how flexible can we be? Let's be flexible. And I think a lot of companies have been surveying people right now, right? And have been saying, do you want to come back to the office? Do you want to blend? Do you want a hybrid? Some days at home, some days in the office, or do you want fully remote? And there's a lot of different answers out there. People just aren't this homogeneous group that everyone's work from home,
Right.
Everyone is in the studio. So it's what suits the person. And I think we come at it from a place of trust. We assume that everyone we hire is an adult, hopefully, and behaves like one, and, they can get their work done in the hours that make sense. Let's have some requirements. Like, if we have some meetings, you got to be available. We need to be able to have those things. But when you're creative, you need space sometimes. You need to be able to go for a walk and look at the trees and think about things. I need that too as a production director. It's like sometimes you need to walk away. And so we need to give people that flexibility. So we're looking at a hybrid approach to it.
Awesome. Well, these are things that I don't know that, your supervisors and producers and general managers maybe knew when you all came into the video game industry. There's a real benefit of not just the experience, but the real world kind of living in this space that you all bring to this, and that must be also incredibly exciting too. You're trying to pass a baton, I would imagine, to a lot of younger people. Jeff, are you are you thinking?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we talked about, from the very beginning, with the way we talked about this studio, was a real mix of people coming in. We wanted to have a lot of experience, but it's really important to us that those people who come in with experience are mentoring the next generation of people who are going to be coming into the industry. We want to make space for that. We want that to be a real part of the DNA of Timber, so that we are. And the other thing is, sometimes I'll talk to younger people who ask me, like, how did you get into the games industry? What was it like? I was like, my experience is not in any way analogous to what yours is going to be. I mean, it was such a different. I started in '95. I mean, it was such a different world back then.
Yeah.
And so we, as people who've been in the industry for a long time, need to be very aware and listen to the people who are coming into the industry to understand their experience. And that's going to help us a lot as well. So we see ourselves as a really strong mix between those experienced people and a lot of fresh new talent.
What kind of games is Timber going to make?
We are not going to tell you.
Well, you don't have to tell me the game, but what kind of games? Have you got a philosophy?
We're going to focus
video
on a couple
games.
areas.
You're going to make video games, okay?
Yeah. They'll be on the video screen. No, we are going to make. We're going to focus on action, adventure, and simulation titles. I think that's something that all of us have in our backgrounds,
right?
And I think that, the fact that even just saying those two genres, they're pretty wide genres,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So we are going to be kind of branching across platforms as well as genres. So I think that's going to be a big push for us.
So are you looking into narrative directors and writers and storytellers? Is that going to be a part of the mixture of the group?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's really important to all of us is the tone that our games take. And actually, just to tie it back into the name, tone, timber. That was one of the reasons why that name really resonated for me, was because the tone of the games that we make really matters to us. And so I think when we talk about the kind of games we're going to be making, there's a specific sort of vibe to the games that we want to get across. That's the one consistent thing, I think, that no matter what genre of game we make, you're going to know it's a timber game when you play it, based on like just the sort of feeling that it creates for people.
Right. Awesome. When you guys all started, and Joe, you and I have talked a little bit about this, the video game industry was very open to people that had no affinity for games or
Right.
real experience in the gaming industry to come on board and to
Right.
share their. And in fact, the games industry benefited in massive ways and needed that as it continued to grow and reach more people. Is that a philosophy that you're also taking, or is it kind of required that everybody's got to be a bit of a game expert before they come to work at Timber?
No, it is the former. It is, we want people with different experiences that can help us drive different in turn experiences for our gamers. You know, we've had so many resumes pop up, like just come flying in since we announced, and it's really exciting to see how many different backgrounds that all these resumes are coming in from.
Right.
But Victor, you know as well as anybody else that the world of games is changing, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's so many different kinds of games, and people like to play in different ways. And you know, like even, you know, you hold something up like The Sims. The Sims is now looking at the kind of people that play these games. They're looking to bring people in from different backgrounds to really make sure that they're speaking to the people that play the games. You know,
Yeah.
you know, people want to remodel their houses now. Half the people that play these products don't even play the game. They just change their house. And so, would it make sense to bring people that maybe have a bit of background in that kind of thing? Same thing goes for us, right?
Yeah.
It's really important that we look at the background of the people. You know, ideally, they should probably be, you know, at least experienced in tech. But there's definitely going to be some opportunities for people that can come from the non-gaming space, and we will bring them along, and we will learn from them in turn.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about Vancouver, which has been EP's home right from the beginning, and I think it has contributed to our ability to, you know, pivot and roll and grow and adapt. It's an incredible city, and it's filled with so much creativity and so many incredible artistic disciplines. And at certain stages, it was one of the central hubs for game making in the world. And then that, I mean, it's a nebulous title anyways, but it kept changing. And part of it was the tax credit thing, I'm sure. But what is Vancouver now? What kind of opportunity does being a game maker out of this city mean for the people that might work at that game maker, but for the world of game development? Zoe, why don't you try to tackle that one?
Yeah, I mean, as you're talking about it, I was mostly, just thinking about the VFX and animation industries here.
Yeah.
The
Mhm.
talent in those industries is just incredible. And if you can convince those people to get into games, you get a really different perspective, and you kind of, I'm going to say you kind of up your game a bit, because they're
Right.
used to very high fidelity, very high quality. And sometimes that doesn't always translate to games in those two areas.
Sure.
So I have found that they'll come in and they kind of push everyone else up a bit of a level. And especially if you're working on games that have a lot of facial animation, you're going to really get those people that have really dug into that. Certainly, in my previous role at the Coalition, that's where we found a lot of talent on the animation side.
Right on.
And it's great. And VFX artists are so difficult to find, as Jeff will agree. They are, I tell ya, you want a job, become a VFX artist.
Mhm.
Because they are always valuable, and it's always an area that needs more people in games and in the VFX industry. So it's just such a great hub to pull that talent from. And so it's really neat in Vancouver how the animation houses, the VFX houses, and the game studios can all kind of contribute to each other's talent. And people really do move quite easily between those industries, and can adapt quite quickly. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Jeff, what are you hoping that Timber achieves, to help furnish awareness and growth of the Vancouver games industry?
I think I think we all love the game community in Vancouver so much. Like we all want all this. Every time there's a new studio that shows up, I'm just so happy that like there's another member of that game community in town.
Yeah.
Because while it is kind of constantly growing and evolving, it's still a small industry, and we all kind of move around and we all cheer each other on. And I have a lot of friends who have started their own companies or have moved on to other companies, and I just want them to succeed so much. And I feel like Timber, where we want it to be is a great mid-sized studio that really sort of celebrates the history of the games industry in Vancouver and the people in it. And as we talk to Pipeworks, when we talk about being in Vancouver, they're in Eugene, Oregon. It's very different games ecosystem down there than it is here.
Sure.
I'm always so proud of Vancouver, and I'm proud of what the industry has done and how it's managed to maintain itself. It has, you're right, it's changed over the years.
Yeah.
But it still is a really thriving industry, and I'm just really excited to be a part of that with Timber.
Well, I think one of the things, I mean, it's been a beautiful launching pad at Electronic Arts, but it's been hard, I think, for developers to kind of escape the shadow of EA, And I think the only way that happens is if there's more studios and more awareness, and people don't just say, oh, that's where EA is, Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think that it diminishes how much creativity is in this community here. One of the things that surprised me, and to Zoe's point about visual effects, I was blown away that Next Level did all of the cutscenes for Luigi's Mansion internally. They didn't export any of that stuff.
Right.
And I'm based here. I'm equally proud to see more developers kind of take ownership on all of that creativity. And it sounds like that's kind of in the cards for Timber. How big do you guys want to grow, and how much do you want to own, in terms of work for the game, the games that you'll build?
We're starting in Vancouver. That's the message. We're gonna plow right across this country, Victor. That's the plan.
So Timber will be in other parts of the country too?
We're planning on it.
That's cool.
There's not only parts of the country, but we want to have people working remotely as well. All over the place with us, right? But I'll give you an example. There's so many great pockets of game making across this country that just don't get the recognition that
they don't get any. Yes.
Like, who knew the Maritimes were going to be really good at mobile, right?
Right.
And Halifax and Prince Edward Island were making huge bank for bigger companies because they just had a great group of people that were very talented, and they want to stay in their community. They want to stay in the Maritimes and do this work. And so we thought, well, what a great story would this be to build something of substance across Canada, taking advantage of pockets of places where people could really focus in different territories, really want to do that. And that's exactly the same thing going on down at Pipeworks. Pipeworks is a great little studio that is going to be expanding too. And so we're really excited about being the northern partner of doing that.
So is it Pipeworks is the American studio under Sumo, and then Timber is the Canadian studio under Sumo? Is that kind of the way?
Pipeworks is kind of like the North American push, and Timber is the first studio to come underneath the Pipeworks flag. But the Canadian stuff is very likely going to be Timber related. When
you're, putting the foundation together to put the company together, was this a thing, Joe? Did you initiated this? I think, was this something that you were able to get going and then you went to Jeff and Zoe, or was it kind of dependent on Jeff and Zoe because you're all co-founders? Did you have to kind of bring them in and then you were in operation?
I had been talking to Lindsay for quite a while at Pipeworks about doing something. And then when the rubber started hitting the road, they said, okay, we really want you to do this, Joe. So assemble the Titans. So that's what I started to do. Jeff was going to be the first call I knew because I was talking with him along the way. Zoe was a little bit after Jeff. but only because I was just kind of figuring out how everything has to work. I mean, it's funny. We had a Slack channel and that we've been using, and Zoe points, she goes, "Oh my God, you started this like a year ago," and I'm like, "I know, right?" Because I had doing my own internal stuff at work about a year ago to figure out what this would be, but that was always in the cards. Victor, there's one thing about um, I was born in Vancouver, and then you go away and you forget and you appreciate things and you come back. And I spent years in California, came back, and I thought, man, I am such a hoser and I really want to be back in Canada. And it's a great story, and let's build something in Canada. And that was always the vision. And I was just so thankful that people like Pipeworks and Sumo had the same kind of thinking, that they were excited to do this. And so that was always in the cards.
Apart from a pandemic that we are still navigating through, what is Zoe? What's the most challenging part of building this up right now?
Oh, that's a good question. I was going to say number one, Joe, number two, Jeff, and then number one, Joe. No. I think for us, thinking about the pandemic actually a little bit is actually us not being able to get together and just brainstorm and do the things that we would normally do. So that's been a little bit hard.
Yeah.
We've been trying to, but it's we're getting used to our daily video calls for sure. But I think we are all very visual, very kind of active people, and so we would have a whiteboard and there would be post-its and things, and we're all kind of like, oh, where's that hub of creativity? So
Sure.
we had to find new ways of doing that. So that's a little COVID related. But I think, for us, probably, and I wouldn't say it was actually that much of a challenge, but it was really making sure that our values were aligned as the three co-founders.
Right.
And then making sure that those values fit in with Pipeworks and then fit in with the Sumo family, right? Because you don't ever want to do that and then find out your values and your mission and your vision aren't aligned. That'd be an awkward moment. So for us, it was really getting that honed in and then making sure that matched the work that Jeff did with our designer on the logo and the name. Because something that it was actually Jeff who raised this, and it had never really occurred to me, but was how many studios have these values that are really public, but then the games they make don't even remotely match those values.
Yes.
And we kind of had a bit of a chuckle about it, and we're like, gosh, I didn't even think about that. And so that was a really neat process to go through, and we spent a lot of time, a lot of really thoughtful conversations saying, how do we do that differently? And so I wouldn't say that was the most challenging thing. It was maybe the most rewarding. Maybe that's the way to say it.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is stuff that the entire industry is kind of grappling with right now, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing massive companies dealing with, executive turnover and big social upheaval. And I'm sure every studio is trying to figure out how to, make better places for everyone to work in and deal with past issues and problems and sort of be ready for this new age of game development. And I'm sure all of you have stories and histories of things that you've all seen or witnessed or gone through, but you can bring that to the forefront starting from day one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
So.
I described it a little bit, Victor, to Zoe and Jeff. It's like, in the city, they're going around and they're retrofitting buildings to be earthquake proof, right?
Yeah.
And, it's like, okay, well, good luck with that, because, you could do a better job of keeping that building up when you're retrofitting, but there's always that chance that you missed a spot, right? And part of that building is going to come down.
Right.
Something like that. We don't have that problem. We get to build something from the ground up now of the values and the vision that we hold ourselves accountable to and believe in and will adhere to. We're not retrofitting a studio with baggage. We're not trying to deprogram people's thinking. We're going to build something from scratch to operate this way. And so that's such a luxury, and it's such a great way to do it.
It's a gift, I think, right? I mean, there are very
Totally.
few businesses where you have this much experience. And I'm not going to age any of you guys or me, quite frankly. But there are very few industries where you can start fresh like this,
Yeah.
right?
This
And
comes up all the time. Yeah.
right?
Every week we'll be in a meeting, and every now and again I'll just remember, oh, we get to do this the way we want to.
That's cool.
I keep forgetting it because
Yeah,
like, well,
me
what are we
too.
supposed to do now? I was like, oh, we can do it the way we want to,
Right.
and that's such a gift from like how we're going to build out actual physical studio space. Joe's got the analogy of the retrofitting buildings, but like when we go into a space now, we can build out that space for whatever post-pandemic workplaces look like. Like we're going to build to that.
Right.
The other thing that comes to mind is there's a line that we have on our website. It's culture drives creative.
Yeah.
And to me, what that means is, your culture is not something that you sort of mandate at the outset. It is your culture is your people. And right now it's the three of us. But
Right.
as we add more people, that is going to define what our culture is. And so we are going to be very intentional when we hire people in and making sure that we have a very diverse workforce, and we are representing a bunch of different views with the people that we hire, the way that we hire them. That is going to create that kind of culture that's going to give us new and different types of games. So yeah,
You've all come from incredible studios and incredible places, and have worked at incredible places. Are you looking to some of these studios as helpful in your modeling for where you want Timber to go, or the opposite of that? And I'm wondering if you have mentors still, if you have people in the business that you still turn to for wisdom and advice on how to
totally.
take this and grow with it. Why don't we start with Zoe?
Yeah, what part of that do you want me to answer first? The mentorship side, absolutely. I've kept mentors my whole career. I actually found my current mentor at Riot Games, which was a bit of a challenging experience for me. But sometimes out of those challenges, you find those people that you need to have in your life. So he recently reached out to me and was just like, "Oh, we got to talk. I'm so proud of you." So that's really great to have people like that in your corner. And I think we all have that. And now I'm going to get you to repeat the rest of the question, because now I've talked and I've forgotten what you asked.
Well, just taking from what's worked in studios that you've
right,
been
yes.
in before, and also, the lessons you've learned
what
to
hasn't
avoid
worked.
things. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think what we've talked about a lot is, let's talk about what we loved about those places and what was just awesome, and that take that whole and work that way. And then let's talk about the things that didn't work and almost have like a putting those things aside, right? So we aren't bringing baggage with us.
Yeah.
Which is really important, because sometimes you can assume something's going to go a certain way because it's the way it was, but you just haven't maybe let that go. So we have talked about that quite a bit. And Jeff reminded me of that when he said to me a few times, he's been like, well, how should we do this thing? And I'm like, I don't know. How do you want to do this thing? Because it's a little bit of those conversations, right? It's like, well, how do we want to do this thing? It's taking the best of the best and the things that weren't great and just setting those aside, and reminding ourselves if we start going down those paths, being like, oh, remember we talked about that. That's maybe not how we want to do this thing. Yeah.
Well, I know Joe has run studios before. Have you run a studio before, Jeff or Zoe?
A whole studio?
Yeah.
No.
No.
So this
No.
is kind of new territory for you guys.
It is, yeah. But
Absolutely.
I would say the scale of game I was working on, like my team at the coalition was, bigger than what our staffing plan is going to be in our first year.
Yeah.
So there's some economy of scale there that has similarities.
Sure.
And certainly the things at the leadership level I was at, you get involved in, and same with Jeff, like you're still involved in those things. But starting my own game studio, no.
I was thinking about that this morning, actually. Like, we've all started new teams, we've all started new groups within companies, but never a whole studio. So the types of conversations we have and the types of issues that we need to deal with, I've just never been a part of before, and it's really fun. Like I spend all day, every day until I go to bed, just thinking about, oh, and then there's this, and then we got to think about this. And it's been great, actually. I've really enjoyed it.
Joe, you've had the both sides of this. You've worked on titles and been a producer of getting a game from beginning to completion. And you've also run studios, and you've done both at the same time. What would you say about that perspective of managing a business that manages creativity?
It's a different angle for sure, Victor. It's with as anything with experience comes wisdom, and you become more self-aware, and you know exactly where your swim lane begins and ends. And I've told people for years, I am actually not particularly good at making games. But I'm pretty good at finding great people that do make great games. And that's the different approach I try to take myself, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what about this game? It's like, well, I actually didn't make this game. I actually built the team that made this game, and the team did the work. And it is a completely different perspective. But man, it should be fun. Like we should be having a lot of fun because we're making video games, and we've all worked in places that have not been fun,
Right.
To make video games. And there's no excuse for that. You should enjoy what you do, because we spend as much time talking to each other as we do our own family. So that's got to be fun. We want to bring that into the workplace, whether you're remote or not. And we got a couple of people working with us already that are just they're so refreshing and fun, and we get so excited to talk to them because they bring us up. Because Jeff and Zoe and I have been looking at only each other for for a while now, and as delightful as they are, you kind of want to add some spice to this recipe, and we've got some more people that are kind of coming on board, and they're bringing that, and I'm so lucky that I get to do this, because I get to kind of take a step back and say, we're going to build this, and I don't have to do all the work. I actually can find the great people that we can do this together, and that's the thing I love.
Yeah, I mean, I respect that so much, because that was something that I learned along the road too of my work, which has been to run a studio and then to run the group of people that were making the content that we were making, and they are different. It's like two different tasks and two different roles, and somehow you have to combine them together. And so I'm really excited to see Zoe and Jeff embrace that and grow with that, and more of that happening within this city as well, which I think is really cool, right? I think that's going to end up becoming really exciting for this business. I want to open up the chat for some questions for you guys. Now, they're not going to tell us what game they're working on. You guys have all witnessed me politely dance around asking anything about what's coming, because I know they're not going to tell me anything. But go ahead and ask these guys what it's like to build a company, or any questions that you might have about working in video games. All three of these people have had legendary careers in games, and they're just getting started on something brand new. But Sec Zed, thank you so much for your super chat. That is incredibly generous, and thank you. You just did a nice comment and a super chat. You're the best. That is crazy. So out of the studios that have been out of Vancouver, we've seen, obviously EA be the big fish for a long time, but there's been companies that have like Radical. There's been companies that have come and gone or changed or whatever. Is there a studio that maybe you didn't work at, and I'm putting this out for all three of you, that maybe you didn't work at but you always admired, or you think is important, for the history of game making in our city?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. Well, one of the ones that I actually did work at that not a lot of people, I'm not sure how many people know about it in the industry in Vancouver, because it seems to be kind of hermetically sealed off a little bit, is Next Level.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to say exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
We're all going to say Next Level. We love you, Next Level.
And me. I love them too. Yeah.
I spent a few years there. I worked on a game there. I spent a little bit of time working on the first Luigi's Mansion, and got to see. Yeah. I got to see it was the
Dark of the Moon.
Yes, Dark of the Moon.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to watch them work with Nintendo, to see how that studio was run too.
Yeah.
That was the place that I worked at where I realized like there's a lot of talent in Vancouver. Every studio has a lot of talented people who work in it, but it really comes down to how studios are run that makes the difference, right? That determines the longevity of a studio. And I really appreciated the way that Next Level was run. They were just a really smart, ethical, very consistent group of people, and just beautifully run. And I take a lot of what I learned from that group, and I've tried to use it everywhere. Every studio I've gone into afterwards, I've been like, there was this thing I learned back at Next Level that I think we should try. And Timber is the time when I go, no, this is actually what we're going to do now, and we're going to be doing a lot of stuff that I picked up there.
That's awesome. I got a question from Sam I am 111 saying, what, if any, action, adventure, or simulation game mechanics do you plan to focus on? Can you tell us about any mechanics in a game? Hypothetically?
Probably not.
Somebody's trying to find out what we're working on.
We're making.
Might involve a mouse.
A mouse. Okay.
A mouse and a few buttons, maybe.
All right. Mice and buttons. Okay.
No,
We're
that's
getting
a
there.
crap answer. Sorry. Victor, one thing I wanted to, if I wanted to add another one into the mix too, is that this unsung is Eastside Games.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
You know, like what a trooper of a studio, and had been around for a while, and I bet you 90% of the people, 99% of the people who play the games to have no idea they're made in Vancouver.
Yes.
And you know what Jeff talked about with Next Level, because I was going to mention the same thing. Next Level has just been such an inspiration for the years, but how great this community is, of how many people have reached out to us and said, how can we help? Josh Nilsson, Eastside Games, reached out. How can I help, buddy? Just name the day.
He's
Jesse
amazing.
Houston, or Houston, I'm going to mess it up, but I'll say Jesse from Phoenix Labs. Same thing. How can I help? I'm like, how amazing is this? There's one thing about this community. We all support each other. We compete against each other in the marketplace, but we don't compete against each other personally.
Yeah. Is that rare? Is it?
I think it's rare.
Yeah.
In some industries, but I think the video game industry really comes together. I mean, I think we've seen video game studios, as you mentioned, Victor, come and go.
Yeah.
We've seen studios go out of business, and then all the other studios surround those people and give them work.
Yeah.
They all kind of like, okay, this studio is going down. Okay, they blow the whistle and all the trucks show up. It's like, okay, and they'll rent out a hall, and we get everyone a job again. We support each other like that, and that's kind of like what we want to be a little part of that community, to build that.
You're making me think of something is sometimes, we get really head down with game development, and we really just look down at what we're doing, and we don't make the effort to be a part of the community.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what's exciting about Timber, is we've all pulled our heads up and gone, right, let's get back into this community and
think there's something
reconnect with those people.
Well, I think there's something inherently Canadian about that as well, right? Like,
that's a good point.
We are very, and I've noticed this when I've traveled to LA or San Francisco or whatever, and I've been around developers or other people in the media. Vancouver hasn't really had, big, let's get together and celebrate the city type nights. We've had a few of those, but it's not a regular thing. Like, pretty much in San Francisco, for many years, people would get together for big dinners and things like that and celebrate, because it's not just development there, it's not just production, it's business there as well. I think the publishing side is so much founded there. But I think the other thing is Canadians were very good at making games. I'm not saying anything. I'm not bragging for bragging's sake. I mean, we make some of the best games in the world here, but I think we're very head down and focused on all that stuff. I got a good question here from James Samilla, and maybe this is for you, Zoe. What do you look for the most in someone that applies? Character, side projects, past experience?
All of the above. So, it depends on the role. So if this person is a bit more junior, we certainly really are looking for that, the character, as they say in there, but the ability to do teamwork, We talk a lot about people that will leave their ego at the door and come in with confidence, absolutely, but a sense of humility and a sense of really putting themselves into a team and being able to collaborate. And really, I've taught at Vancouver Film School. Joe has mentored there as well, and it's something we're planning on getting more involved in with the community as well. But
That's awesome.
We always say to students, look to your left, look to your right, because you're going to work with those people one day. So you better be nice to them, and then you better know how to work with them and how to be on a team. And so that really honestly is the most important thing at any level of experience. And then certainly for more senior roles in a leadership or a lead role where you're going to be a people manager, we are looking for people that are absolutely fantastic people managers, because that's what makes happy teams. Most people quit managers, not companies. And so, we're very aware of that. So we want to make sure those people succeed. And then, of course, we're looking for people that are just excellent at their craft, certainly at those higher levels, best in class craft people. Yeah.
Marco A has got a question, and this, I guess, can relate to our dearly departed United Front Games. Rest in peace. Another incredible Vancouver studio.
Yeah.
Are you going to bring back sleeping dogs? You don't have to say anything. Just blink twice.
I agree. Great franchise.
Wasn't that great? That was a great game.
Yeah.
What a great team. Like, those people have gone on to do some great stuff. And really sad that UFG isn't around anymore.
Well, I specifically remember when UFG went down and we all went to that hotel on, I think, Howe and Davie or something. It was, and we rented a hall and we circled that team and tried to get everyone a job. And I think we got 99% of them a job.
Yeah.
So much talent. That was crazy. So much talent in that studio. It was incredible. Okay. I think we've got about 5 minutes left. So this is, I've got one from Peter Kukasar. Do you know of any roles in game development for people who are not terrific devs or artists, but have Wall Street level data analytics skills? This is a huge chunk of the video game industry.
Yes,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Data is king. It doesn't matter if you think you're cool, your data will tell you how cool you are.
Right.
And absolutely, analytics is and being able to look at KPIs and tell a good story about what's happening. Again,
Tell us what KPIs are, Joe.
Key performance indicators.
Nerd.
It's like how many people stick around and play the game, what do they do, how often do they do it, all those different things that we look at, right? They tell a real story and you can see patterns, and larger game companies are building entire departments around that to just measure that stuff, because you make a game and you think you're doing okay, but your folks will tell you whether you are doing well or not. And if you have the right telemetry hooked up to your machine, to your games, you can get some really amazing insight. I drive Zoe bonkers on a daily basis, but I'd like to say lots of things. And one of them is I really believe some games should be beta forever. Just be beta forever, because you're never going to be done. You're always going to be changing things. Things are going to be coming up. People are going to say, "Oh, we really love this feature. Do more of that. Really hate this feature. Do less of that."
Yeah. There's
going to be a lot of that in the future. There's some games that are beta forever.
Yeah.
Already, without even saying it, like World of Warcraft. That thing's always in beta because they're always changing.
Right. Is that the kind of thing that inspires you, though, as game makers, to work on titles that are never finished?
I'll speak quickly and I'll shut up and let these two take it. I love games with a long tail.
Okay. I guess you just came from The Sims, and if there is an
example,
example,
for 20 years,
Sims
has been around for 20 years, and Sims 4 has been around for 7. There are probably 30-40% of the people that are playing The Sims today played on day 1. And we know that because we can read the telemetry.
Yeah.
It's like a favorite shirt or a thing that you love. You'll come back to it again and again and again, but you got to tend to it and care for it.
The Sims must have taught you so much, I would imagine, because
incredible.
Right?
Incredible.
Yeah, I mean, even when we did that talk and you brought up all that data around The Sims, my mind was blown, because when you're in the business, and I think this speaks to Zoe's head down comment there, we're all just so focused on what's now, what's next, what are we doing, what are we excited about today? And then the regular people, the people that actually play this stuff, they stay with these things.
Well, I said to Zoe and Jeff the other day, in one of my many things, sometimes the people that know the least about video games are the people that make video games.
Yeah.
Because their head is so down in the game that they make, they don't pop their head up to see what else is out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, it really is it's about like the planning out the type of experience that you want to make so that it can live after you present it to the world, right? And I think that's something that we find really appealing. I think for the titles that we want to make, we want to be able to like create a meaningful experience at launch that will just continue to live on after it's out there.
Okay, I've got a question here from Shadow Mist One. Where do you get most of your story narrative style? From books, other games, music? Are you guys at that point?
What I'll say is we are looking at a lot of things right now. We're incredibly excited about, and I'm really surprised this early on at the breadth of things that we're looking at for inspiration.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say any more about that. I'm going to get in trouble if I do.
Well, I want to kind of close this off by asking you three veterans, what is exciting about making a video game after you've been making video games for more than 20 years? Zoe?
I think, for me, the biggest thing is creating a community and then creating a game that the community loves. And then just like what Joe and Jeff are saying, being able to adapt and listen to them and care and tend for them inside the game and keep delivering, what they want, but taking them along on the journey. And part of us, wanting to talk to you and talk to press so early is we want to bring everyone along on the journey. We want people to see what it's like to create a game company, and what it's like to create a game and what that experience is like. And so I'm really excited about creating that community. And then also really living our value of the, culture drives creative, like making that happen and proving, I think, to the games industry a little bit that can be a reality. Yeah.
Amazing answer. Jeff, what about yourself?
I think for me, the first thing that comes to mind is the collaboration with the people that are going to be making games with us. I think the one thing that Joe and Zoe and I all have in common is we are all really good facilitators for the people that we work with. I think that's where our strengths lie, in creating creative space for people to do their best work. And that's what gets me really excited. We have employee one with us right now who has already been so great in just offering up tons of ideas around some of the things that we're talking about, and I think is a little surprised that they've got the room to do that. And but that's the kind of company that we want to make, and that's what I really enjoy about it. It's just creating space for people to be as creative as possible. Looking forward to it.
And Joe?
Obviously what they said. I look at the video games that I've been lucky to be a part of over the past few years, and look at how different they are from then to now. And I look ahead for the next 10 years. And, I said to Jeff, in the next 5 years, we'll be using iPhone 17s and iPhone 18s. And I said, what does it even mean? Is it going to be invisible? Will it float by my head? Is that how it's going to work? And that's where technology is going. And we haven't even scratched the surface of where we're going. All people are connected on all devices all the time. There are amazing things like connected accounts with Game Pass, all these different ways to bring gamers together. And I'm super excited about making experiences where people can enjoy the product that they want to play on whatever product they happen to have. That's what I'm excited about. But honestly, the thing I'm most excited about is building something awesome with these two. Every day I go, oh my God, I get to work with Zoe and Jeff every day. This is amazing. And it truly is, right? And all the people we're bringing on board, like the person that Jeff just talked about, we hired this guy and he's like, oh my God, where has this guy been all our life? And then we're going to create more of this person. But that's the best part, working with these guys.
Well, I am really grateful that you guys gave me the chance to talk with you so early in the lifespan of this company. It's a very rare opportunity, and I couldn't be more excited for all three of you and for the local scene here in Vancouver. I can't wait till we can actually meet face to face, and I can physically visit your space and meet some more of your team members. But
We'll send you an invitation to the cocktail party.
That sounds awesome. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Joe. Good luck to Timber Games, and definitely reach out when you guys are ready to tell us what you're working on. Let me know. But thank you all for tuning in, and thank you for your awesome questions. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you to our sponsor at the Gaming Stadium. They are Canada's leader in online esports tournament facilitation. They've got tournaments happening every single weekend. Find out all about them at tgs.gg. And if you're listening to this on a podcast service out there, we also stream Vic's Basement live quite often, and we'd love to have you in the chat. We have an incredible community filled with lots of really passionate game players that ask incredible things and have great comments and wisdom to share with everybody. But thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We will see you all very soon, and until then, play forever.